Hey y'all, how's it going? Welcome to my kitchen, and today we are talking about making strawberry jam. Now, right off the top, I do want to be very transparent in the fact that I'm not actually going to be giving you any recipes during this video, and that's because canning recipes are extremely specific. Canning recipes are tested, experimented on, and you need the right pectin, you need the right proportions, you need to follow the right procedures. So I just want to give y'all that off the top, is I'm not actually going to be giving you any recipes. I do all of my canning out of 2 books. This is one of the ball canning books that I use. This is the newer one. It's huge. It's got tons of recipes, and the whole first section talks about canning basics. So I will be using this cookbook today. Well, not today, but later. And then here's another blue book guide to canning and preserving. This is also a ball canning cookbook. This one I find has a lot more like standard recipes like strawberry jam, and this one has some like fancier stuff. So I'm using these 2 books to do my strawberry jam recipes today. And so off the top, no canning recipes today, and the risk to giving out recipes without them being like properly tested and without you having the knowledge of properly canning things is that you could actually make yourself or somebody else very, very sick. So we're doing this canning today as kind of an inspirational kind of a jam, but also I want to show you guys kind of how I operate in my kitchen. This is some strawberry jam that I canned in February, and I was actually just doing a little bit of a test run. I used strawberries that I got from my local grocery store. They were just conventionally grown strawberries, and they were 50% off because they were so ripe that there was a couple of moldy ones in the bottom. However, mold generally does not deter me. So I bought the berries, I cleaned them up, and I made strawberry jam for the first time, which is here. And honestly, this has been one of the favorite jams from my loved ones that I've ever made. All of my friends and family that I've given it to are like cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs about it. So I decided that I was gonna really try and do some more locally sourced fruit this year. So one of my good friends, she messaged me and said, hey, I used to go strawberry picking when I was a kid. Do you wanna go pick strawberries with me? And I was like, yeah. So we went to a place in Fredericksburg called Jenske Orchards. So I'm in Central Texas, and literally I had seen this place before, and all I did was Google "you pick farms" around Austin, Texas, which is where I live. And it was about an hour and 15-minute drive, super easy drive. The people at the orchards were so kind. So if you've never been to You Pick Farm, let me kind of give you the lay of the land, or at least what our experience was that day. So we got there. They gave us a box. I'll grab the strawberries. So they gave us this box. The box costed $2, and then it was $4 a pound that you picked, and you can usually fit 7 to 9 pounds of strawberries in one of these boxes. So you could have taken 2 boxes. You can basically pick as many strawberries as you want. And they basically said, we're starting in row 5 today, so just go to row 5 and start there and pick whatever berries you want. So we've probably spent about an hour picking berries. They have this really super cute little farm stand to go kind of check out in, and then there's an attached barbecue place. So honestly, it was like a wonderful half-a-day adventure that we took, and I got all these beautiful strawberries. So these have been sitting in the fridge now for a couple of days, which is not excellent because we picked the most ripe berries we could. So today what I'm gonna be doing is I'm actually leaving for the weekend. And so what I'm gonna be doing is I'm actually gonna be prepping these strawberries today, and then we're gonna make jam next week or the week after, or whenever I have time to make jam. So just because you don't have the time to make the jam right then and there, you can still go pick the strawberries and use them for jam by freezing them. And that's really not a big deal at all. I was just more really excited to make jam out of locally grown strawberries, and honestly, they're phenomenal. Let me cut one open and show you. I very much half grew up in Southern California, and there is literally nothing better than a field ripened strawberry. And you always know that you have the most ripe sweet strawberries because they are fully red inside and out. There's no like white So if I cut this open, look at how ripe that is. And y'all, these are, seriously, they're like candy. It's ridiculous, they're so sweet. Since I can't make jam today, what we're gonna do today is prep the berries. I'm gonna show you how I wash them. It's not rocket science. And how I prep the strawberries to be frozen. And then I'll go ahead and actually measure out the strawberries I need for each recipe, and that's how we'll freeze them, just kind of make life easy. And then we'll also go over the tools that you need. Okay, so before we actually start prepping our berries, let's talk about like canning supplies in general. So I have finally gotten myself a pair of canning tongs. I used to just use regular tongs, and that's dangerous. So don't do that. Get a pair of canning tongs. These will actually go around your jam jar perfectly, so you don't lose your jam. Because let me tell you, using regular tongs, I've almost burned myself, exploded glass, and a lot of other dangerous stuff. So please, take it from me. Get yourself some canning tongs to take things in and out. Now, another thing you may or may not use, I've just used a knife. This is a tool for you to put in the corner of the jam jars to like get any air bubbles out. Honestly, I remember to do it half the time and it always works out fine. And then the last thing are canning funnels. I usually try and get the ball canning funnels because they're made to stand up to hot things going through them. But I also have this really old canning funnel from my great grandma because she was an avid canner. So I do like to use this. I'm just very careful with it because I don't want to break it. Yeah, so this is a personal one. Obviously, the other big thing you need are jars. So I always get a brand name jar, whether it's Ball, Kerr, there's another company out called 4 Jars that put out lids. You wanna make sure that the jars you're getting are specifically for canning because you are going to be putting this jar, you're not only gonna be putting hot stuff in it, but then you're going to be putting it in boiling water. So, I just get the brand name. I don't reuse old jars. I know people do it differently in other countries. That's totally fine. You do you, boo. Just understand the ramifications and potential consequences of what you're choosing to do, whether you're using old jars, whether you're using brand new jars. I invest a lot of money and effort and honestly joy into my canning process. So I just go ahead and invest to make it the most surefire that it can be. Now, the other components of canning that you'll need are a lid. This is a lid. Whenever I'm properly canning, I always get a box of new lids. They're not that expensive. And the risk of not getting brand new lids, the risk of reusing lids is that you're not gonna get a proper seal. And then when you don't get a proper seal, your stuff is not going to be properly preserved. You could get mold, all the good stuff. Now, the other component is the ring. So this is called a ring. These you can reuse. And honestly, a lot of people take these off after the canning process is done. The reason that people will take them off and store them without the ring is to make sure that they have a real seal. So I always test mine to make sure they have a real seal. I'm literally holding it by the lid and it's not coming off. So I know that mine has a real seal, and this is probably silly, but I just like the look of having the ring on there. So I always test mine to make sure they've sealed properly, and then I put the rings back on just because I like the way it looks. However, you do always want to test to make sure you actually do have a good seal. So same thing with the canning lids and the rings. You want to make sure you get ones that are meant for canning because they will be put in extremely hot water and you don't want to go to all that work just for things to kind of go awry. Now, the next thing you'll need to get that isn't the fruit is pectin. So there are some recipes that use pectin, some that don't. Read your recipe. For one of the recipes I'm going to make, I actually need a low sugar or no sugar pectin, which I'm having trouble sourcing at the current moment, but I will find it by the time we make these recipes. So pectin is required for your fruits to actually gel like a jam. So for you to get from like liquid to this like jammy consistency, you need pectin. Now, all fruit naturally has pectin in it, and the more ripe your fruit is, the more pectin it will have. So that's the good news. But again, I like to follow the recipe. I don't necessarily rely on my fruit having enough pectin because I literally spent 2.5 hours driving to get these berries and an hour picking them. So I already have about, 4.5, 5 hours invested in this project. We're making it bulletproof, y'all, okay? So this classic pectin ball sells this, and I just, again, stick to the brand name. However, with that being said, I do get this one. Sure Gel Pectin is another really good one. You just wanna make sure you have the right supplies. So we've gone over most of the supplies. The other thing you're gonna need for most of these recipes is sugar. So I just get your classic granulated sugar. You're gonna need a lot of it, so just go ahead and buy a lot of it. If you're going for one of the low sugar recipes, read your recipe, and it probably, like, one of the recipes that I'm gonna do is low sugar, so it's actually using agave. The next thing you'll need is a really big, tall pot to do your water bath canning. So there's two different kinds of canning: water bath canning and pressure canning. I haven't really ventured into pressure canning yet. So you want a pot big enough to do your water bath canning in. For little jelly jars like this, any kind of deep pot will be fine. Okay, also to prep your berries, and I'm just gonna do a handful with y'all because there's a lot of, there's actually 8 pounds of strawberries here. Just by the way. We'll take some berries. Y'all, they are so deep red, and they just, like, now that they're like getting to room temperature, they just smell like strawberries. Like, it's just coming off of them. So I just give mine a real solid rinse. Nothing crazy, no vinegar, no fruit wash, none of that stuff. You can probably tell how I feel about it just by those statements right there. Now, I kind of wish I had a melon baller. But I'm just gonna take the very top of this off. And it's really just to get any of the tough parts out, okay? Now, if I had more time, I would probably stand here and like properly like chop them up small, because that's just gonna make your jamming process easier. But I'm just gonna cut them into quarters. So I'll cut them into quarters, and then we will measure them out for each recipe. But that's pretty much it. You literally just slice off the tops. I try and take as little as possible. Like, this is all I took off. You don't need to take off anything more than that. So we'll get our strawberries quartered up here, and then I'll show you how I freeze them. Okay, y'all, so I got half of them chopped up. So you'll notice that in some of the older recipes, they are gonna measure in quarts, whereas we're used to measuring in cups. So all I do is I literally go get a quart jar. This is a quart jar. And I measure out 2 quarts of my berries. That's just, I feel like, is like the most surefire way of making sure you have the right amount. And you wanna like shake your jar around a little bit. Make sure that they settle, because notice you've all of a sudden got more space once they get settled. For the regular jam I'm making, I need 2 quarts. Oh, lost one on the floor. So that's gonna be 1 quart. And then I know I need 5 cups for the other recipe. So we'll just toss these in a bag. And so that'll be my 2 quarts for the regular jam. Yeah, see, those strawberries go quickly once you really start doing it. So what I like to do when I freeze this kind of stuff, and I should have written on the bag before, but I'll write on the bag, for strawberry jam, and then I'll write on the other bag for tequila agave strawberry jam, just so I know which one's which. Definitely should have written on the back first. So then once that dries, I'll get all the air out, and then I always like to freeze them flat. Whether I do that on a sheet pan or just flat on one of the things, it just saves more room in my freezer. So that's the first one. We'll get the rest of these berries cut up, and that should give me just enough for the other recipe that I'm gonna make. I always find that I end up getting a little more yield out of the recipe than it says. I think I'll probably end up with about 6 6 to 8 of these guys out of this one jam recipe, and then I've never made the other one before. So I'm gonna get these finished prepped, and then I will meet you back here next week, aka in literally 5 seconds for you, but in 1 week for me, to actually make this jam. Okay, y'all, we're back, and it's time to make some strawberry jam. I have defrosted my strawberries. You could also do this with them frozen. I just chose to defrost it because I had the time today. So, first things first, strawberries into the pot. I'm going to remind you this is a really good time to refer back to your recipe. I'm also gonna leave some canning recipes for strawberry jam in the description box that you should use. Now, the nice thing about defrosting is that they are gonna start to kind of create their own jam. And if you remember from, you know, a few seconds ago, these are the strawberries that I went ahead and measured out for jam making. Oh my God, they smell so good. So first things first, we cut up our berries, but we still need to smash them up a little bit. Now, I didn't smash mine the last time I did this, anything crazy, and it was a little chunkier and it was fine. So smash your strawberries to your heart's content. I wouldn't blend this if I were you, like with a blender, like an immersion blender. It might be kind of tempting, but you know, you want it to be a little jammy, and it's gonna break down even more as you start to actually cook the jam too. I did mine probably halfway broken down. So now, according to our recipe, we need lemon juice. Whenever you're doing canning recipes, you always want to buy bottled lemon juice, and the reason you want to use bottled lemon juice is because it has a higher citric acid than what you're gonna get out of an actual lemon. So we're gonna go 1/4 cup of lemon juice. If you guys hear Mrs. Thumper, that's one of our friend's dogs that's hanging out with us right now. So we're gonna go 1/4 cup lemon juice, and then we need our pectin. One. Okay, so there's our 6 tablespoons of pectin, and then I use ball jar pectin, but then I'm also trying the Sure Gel. This is a pretty well-known brand, so should be fine. Okay, so now we're gonna toss this on the stove, and I put it over medium. I like to go a little low and slow, mostly because I'm usually like running around doing 500 other things. And we're gonna bring it to a boil, stirring occasionally. And in the meantime, we're gonna get our canning pot ready. So this is just a aluminum pot that I like to use for canning. It was cheap. I wasn't really sure how canning was gonna go, so that's what I've got. It's a 2-quart, and it fits all the jars that I do wonderfully. I don't do anything over a quart. You can easily do quarts in here. It does take more times because it's not a very large pot, but it works just fine. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna fill it a little bit with water, and then we'll put our jars in. You have to can with hot jars, and this is a mistake I've made a few times and ruined canned goods. So some people will put them in the dishwasher. I just go foolproof and I boil them. Also, I'm just gonna put this out there. If you have anybody in your life who gives you canned goods, give their jars back. It's hard out here getting jars all the time. I like my jars to have a little bit of room to move around. You'll hear it in a little bit. They start like clinking together. But I always make sure I have at least 1 inch of water above my jars. So our jam is working. It's not boiling quite yet, but while we're waiting, we're actually gonna measure out the sugar. So you do need sugar for jam. Just because you make jam at home doesn't mean it's like super healthy. It's probably still full of sugar, and that's fine because jam is tasty. So for this recipe, we need 7 cups of sugar. Oh, okay. Let me bring you over to what our jam actually looks like. That's what it looks like right now. And it's not boiling yet, but it is hot. So like I said, I like to bring mine up to a boil gently. You could probably crank her up. I know thyself, and I know that that's not a good idea for me. And while I'm still waiting for that to boil, I can actually start to set up like my canning station. So I like to have all of my supplies at the ready because hot sugar jam is very hot, and I would like to work with it quickly, and I would like to have everything I need right where I need it. So I'll grab my funnel. Now this is an important one. Lids need to be fresh every time you use them. Bands do not. because the only reason we have the band is to keep the lid on while it's canning. And then remember, you can actually take the ring off, and that's totally fine. So I'll actually keep my lids and my band separate, and the reason for that is I like to wipe my rim with vinegar, then I like to set my lid and then screw on the band. I always grab a cookie sheet to like put everything on, because what I want to be able to do is take that cookie sheet and go set it on my kitchen table or set it somewhere else so that I can finish cleaning my kitchen. All right, y'all, we are boiling. So we're at a pretty light boil right now, but we're getting loosey-goosey. Now, once we add our sugar, we're gonna wanna bring this to a pretty hard boil. Like, I'm talking a rolling boil. So the sugar is gonna bring down the temperature of the jam, and it's gonna take a minute for it to get there. This is the kind of rolling boil you want. It's aggressive, but it's exactly what you need. Okay, y'all, we have hot jars, we have hot jam. I'm gonna zoom in close and explain what's happening so we can all do it together. We're gonna take our funnel, we're gonna pick a jar, any jar. We'll start with this guy. Don't forget, these jars are very hot. Now, we're going to ladle our jam, very hot jam. And we wanna try and get the pot as close as possible so we don't lose any. We're gonna ladle our jam. If you're having trouble figuring out what a 1/4 inch headspace is, this is where this tool comes in really handy, and you can actually just measure. So I can fill this up a lot more. So then what we'll do is we'll use the other end of this to just put it down along the side to make sure there's no air bubbles. I'm then gonna take a paper towel dipped in vinegar, and I'm gonna clean the edge here and the top to make sure I get a clean seal, because we are working with sugar. We'll take my lid, we'll gently set it on there, and then attach my band. I usually grab a kitchen towel so I can kind of hold on to it and attach it down. And there you go. So I'm gonna get the rest of these finished, and I'll show you the actual canning part. We're getting there, y'all. I know it's dark, but we have all of our jam. We're gonna go into the water bath canner. Actually gonna stick an extra jar in there because it looks like we have enough for one more jar of jam, which would give us 9 total. So we're gonna start with the jars that are full. So I've made sure that my bands are like finger tight. I'm not gonna yank them on there. You don't want them too tight because it could affect the seal. So we'll just drop these guys in one at a time and then process for 10 minutes. And I'll see you in 10 minutes. Okay, y'all, so it has been 10 minutes. We are going to pop these out, and then let's go talk about it. Okay, so I did end up having to finish it off with one more jar. But here is our finished strawberry jam. So as these cool off, ooh, that's still hot. So as these cool off, you'll start to hear the pings. Where it goes ping, 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 which means it's sealing. So I like to go ahead and at this stage, just for cleanliness, so it doesn't leave any water stains, I like to go ahead and just soak off the water on the top. You don't want to press down too hard because you don't want to impact the seal. These are going to get set to the side, and let's make a new recipe together. These are still frozen, obviously. And then what we're gonna do, according to my recipe, is take half a cup of tequila. This is Espolón. This is one of our favorite tequilas to make margaritas with, and I do live in Central Texas, and we're very serious about our margaritas. Smells like last weekend in Mexico. I'm very serious. It was a lot. So half a cup of tequila. And then because these berries are frozen, we're actually gonna stick this on the stove and let them break down a little bit. And then we're gonna go through a very similar process of mashing them with the potato masher, and then we'll see what's next, because I've never done this either. Y'all, I put a lid on this thing, and when I took the lid off, and I had hot tequila in my nostrils, I wasn't sure if I liked or hated it, but we gotta add pectin, and this one has to be at a real high rolling boil. So I already measured it out, but this is the less or no sugar pectin. And yes, the difference is important. It will make a difference in your final product. Now at this stage, the recipe says we have to get it to a place where the rolling boil can't be stirred down. And I will tell you what that means. I'll show you actually. Hopefully I don't get a hot jam on my camera. So when you stir something that's boiling, it stops boiling. It's pretty normal, right? So what we're looking for is for it to continue to boil even when we're stirring it. Yeah, this one's angry. Okay, so now we need our agave. All right, so we're gonna go a whole cup of agave. Ooh, that might be the rest of our agave. Okay, no margaritas for me tonight. And now we need to get this to a very aggressive rolling boil. Okay, y'all, now this recipe, ooh, tequila. So this recipe is only supposed to make 4 half pints, but I've learned my lesson over the years and you always heat more jars. So I've got 6 jars. So same process, we're gonna fill to a 1/4 inch headspace, wipe our rim, set our lids, that I forgot to prep my lids. Rookie move. So same process, we do a boop, 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 doo, doo, doo. And we check for our headspace, 1/4 inch, wonderful. We dip in the vinegar, wipe the rim, set our lid, grab our band, don't burn your fingies. All right, I'm gonna get these finished up and then it's the same process, water bath can for 10 minutes, and I will actually see you back tomorrow for a quick taste test. Good morning, y'all. Let's crack open a jar of our strawberry jam and have some breakfast. Here's our regular strawberry jam. I always check the seal by popping off the ring, and then if you can hold it by just the lid, you've got a good seal. So let's pop this open. It smells so good. And you can see the texture is just real thick and jammy. Stays on our toast really well. Oh my God. So the jam I made with the other strawberries that were from the store was really good. You can taste the ripeness of the strawberries in this jam because they were locally picked by me at their like peak ripeness instead of being picked early. So, oh my God. So stay tuned for how we use that strawberry tequila agave jam because I got big plans for it. So thanks so much for watching. Happy gardening, happy cooking, happy canning. We'll see you next time.